Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining.
Hello!
This is Mandy Friend, one of my really good mom friends in the area. And one thing I highly recommend is as you start becoming a mom, if you're pregnant or newly just pregnant, or maybe you have a lot of kids, try to plug into people around you that you can have a community of moms that you can share life with, be authentic with, because she's been one of those people for me in the area, and it's made a huge difference. And I'm really excited because Mandy's such a person that is going to help tackle this issue of, hey Lisa, thanks for joining, of work-life balance. And it's not perfect. It's actually super, it's so far from. And especially when you're trying to pursue a career and you're trying to balance things at home between, making time for your husband, making time for your kids, doing things just at home, it can feel super overwhelming and you feel like you're not, succeeding in any of them. And so I want to kind of give Mandy a time to give her backstory, to just kind of share who you are first, what do you do, and then how do we know each other?
I don't even know how we know each other.
I do. So I was thinking about this driving here. We, when Lee and I first moved here, we got plugged into RYP, Rochester Young Professionals. And I remember Kyle Gordon saying, you need to know, do you know Mandy Friend yet? I think you guys would hit it off. And so I went to this event. And Mandy, for those of you that don't know her, is the most gregarious, hey everybody! She's the mirror of life. And so I was like, who is she? I need to get to know her. She's awesome.
What event? Do you even remember what event it was?
Gosh, it was it was one of their socials, right? So it was one of the newer restaurants downtown. It wasn't daily. What was the one that had the stock market? I know it wasn't
Wall
that
Street?
One. It wasn't Wall Street. It was...
What other one?
It wasn't
the one that had the stock.
Because I know that was the second one we ever went to, because that was the time I met Brian. But I remember meeting you because I wanted to get on the board to be... who were the people that meted and greeted but really didn't have a role, but you got to wear a name tag? Do you remember what that job was? So anyway, yes. I got to be plugged into there, and you were serving on the board. But that's how I first met you, was through RYP.
Mm-hmm. So we can really thank Kyle Gordon.
We can really thank Kyle Gordon for this wonderful relationship. Yes.
Hi, Tiff.
Hey, Alyssa.
So my story is I grew up in Canandaigua, and so I'm definitely from the area, and I moved to Rochester after I went down to school in Virginia, and I came up after college and started working at the Rochester Athletic Club. And I was an athlete, so I loved working out and I loved sales, so it worked really well. And then I got to the point where I just felt just pulled, as in the business side. So I started and got my license in 2010 when I was 22. And
what license?
Real estate license, sorry. I got my real estate license, and the average age of a realtor was 56 at the time, and probably still is something around that.
Different.
Yeah, so it was just it was really a different concept to have someone so young in real estate, and I just loved it. And I joked with my dad, because my dad's a banker, and very we save our money, we do, very methodical about it. And I was like, Dad, I'm just going to do this. And he's like, okay. I'm like, Dad, I could be horrible for 8 years. And by the time I'm 30, I can still fail the entire time. Give me 8 years to fail. And he was like, it's not like I'm going to stop you anyway. So it was it's been a fun journey. And then I met my husband, actually right before I got my license in 2010. I met him, and then we had our first baby in 2015.
Okay.
We, as we were growing, the real estate we've started a team, so we have about six of us now on our team.
Which we're actually in her office, hence the really cute homes behind me. And can we just say how legit she is? She has mugs. I feel like I'm on the Ellen show. These are not MomSimply mugs, these are Mandy Friend Team mugs. So if you're looking for a house, you've looked no further.
Wait, but look at how creative it is. It says, it's does this mug make me look engaged? Let me see. Can you see? Oh, it's backwards. But it says, does this mug make me look like a homeowner?
That is so cute.
I know, like
These are so fun, so clever.
So anyway, started this real estate team and just love it. It's just really been my big why and my passion. And then, so Aliana was born. Where was I? And then we decided to buy a daycare. God told us to buy a daycare, so we bought a daycare. And then our little man Amiko came into our world this past August. So I have a 2-year-old and 2.5-year-old and a 5-month-old little boy.
So look at all the hearts. So those of you that are in it elbow deep as a mama, you know that Mandy's in it elbow deep. She has a baby and she has a toddler and she's trying to run a business.
Oh, and my husband is a chiropractor. So he has his office. It's actually downstairs in this office, and I'm basically a partner with him as he is in my business too, but he's an entrepreneur too. So that's just, an extra thing to add to the crazy.
And because I think some of you who are just tuning in, you hear this, wow, you have your real estate company, look at this office you're in, you have a daycare, and it also is attached to the place you work, and wait a minute, your husband's attached there. And I know for me, I'm guilty of when you hear other people talk and you think, I want to get there, you want kind of immediate results, and you can get that envy pull on you, like, oh wow, if only I had been there. And what I want to help show, and what I'm hoping we'll get out of from today, is that this isn't something that happens overnight. And Mandy's going to try to talk you through her journey of when she recognized things aren't working, I need to stop and pause and reevaluate, readjust, put a plan in place, and then execute that plan. And I think those can be very difficult things, because a lot of times we think of the wants we seek, but we don't put a plan in place. And with a thought or a wish without a plan, that's just a wish. There's no goal in sight. And Mandy's going to talk how you can achieve that goal of handling work and life. Tiffany says he's an amazing man. She needs to get adjusted. Also, if any of you need adjustments, Eddie specializes in upper cervical chiropractic.
Yeah, he's amazing. Don't tell him I said it. Eddie, I hope you're not watching.
And this is someone, too, Mandy she had an at-home birth. And that could be like should almost be its own separate topic and entity.
If you want a crunchy girl.
If you want a crunchy girl, this is your mama bear. Those of you that think I'm a hippie, this is like next level. Mandy could survive in the 1800s and take her head off, hat off to everybody. So those of you just tuning in, I know we have a little snippet of what this whole talk is about, and it's work-life balance. So first, I'm just out of curiosity. Hey, Aunt, how are you? I want to know, those of you tuned in, who is a working parent? Just give a like or a heart. Who out there who's watching, who works? And if you do work, I want to write in the comment section. I think people work for a lot of different reasons. And you either work out of necessity.
Okay, lots of people.
Yeah, a lot of people. You either work because you desire it, or maybe it's a mixture of both. So in the comment section, do you work out of necessity? Do you work out of desire? And what I mean by desire is some of you are better moms when you're working. You're better at balancing things when you're working. Or are you a mixture of both? You kind of need to do it to help bring an extra income in, but you also do it because you really, really like it too. And Mandy, where you stand, what's your temperature read on that? Are you a necessity, or are you a desire, or are you both?
I'm for sure a desire to work. My game plan was to have babies when I was 35. That's what I had always talked about with my family. I was like, I don't want babies. I want to do the business thing. And then God was just like, nope, here's Aliana.
Wow.
Okay. And I had a hard time with thinking that I was going from, how old was I? Maybe 26, 27. And I didn't think that my heart was ready, but God just knew that we were ready for her. Yeah. And I was just worried that it was going to affect my business. That was the craziest thing, because I'm such a business-driven person. And for me, I knew it was a priority to maintain that business while being a mom and while being the best mom I could possibly be. And when you meet that baby, you just meet them for the first time and you're just
it's
like, oh,
overwhelming.
You're like, I will do whatever it takes for you.
Yeah.
And I just think that I really worked hard from the very beginning to make it where I knew that I needed that business. I needed that for my heart, for my soul, for my family, that it really, a lot of people are both, that a lot of people, think that we have to stay at home. Like, I feel like there's a lot of pressure.
Oh,
if you don't have to work, why are you working? And I'm like, because I really like to, and it's like a huge passion of mine. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but I really, really love to work. It just fires me up.
And I think that's a lot of moms struggle with that. And I think a lot of you will resonate with this, mom guilt, and how heavy that can be. And I think too often, and I think as a society, we've come from a far place that women and men are equal. They have a place in the workforce. But I think still as women, you have this, negative notion that when you're removed from being around your babies and you're working, you feel bad. And you think, I should be home with them, but I'm really enjoying work. And mom guilt takes over. Have you struggled with that?
Mm-hmm. And when I'll kind of share my navigation through Jamie, I totally hear you.
What does Jamie
she
say?
Goes, depends on how my students are that day.
Oh, she's a teacher. Okay,
yeah,
I
used
to be a teacher too. Where do you teach, Jamie? Just curious.
Should I answer? She's at Victor.
Oh, Victor. That's a great school
district. She's got 2 beautiful little ones. Not that I stalk you or anything. What was the question you asked me? You asked me...
So
the balancing piece.
The balance, yeah.
Yeah.
About mom guilt. How do you balance that?
What I actually felt was I felt like I didn't feel mom guilt, and I felt guilty about not feeling guilty.
Ah, interesting. Because
I really loved it. And my parents always know that I'm crazy, but I felt like the guilt came from me because my husband's family, they're Italian, and they're in Canada. And in Canada, you get 1 year maternity leave. And for them, that's just the normal thing. So I would, go up and visit, and it would be, Aliana was like 7 months old, and they're like, so, how are you feeling getting ready to go back to work? And I'm like, I've been working. And they're like, full time? And I'm like, yeah, like ever since I could bring her somewhere. And I think that for me was like, I really had to just really search, like do a lot of soul searching and to find confidence that I really do love.
You don't have to explain yourself every time.
Yeah, and they were amazing, and they're like the best in-laws ever. For me, it was a personal thing.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
For them it was just a different culture, and it was a drastic change. And of course, they loved me through it. It was just a very apparent, like, wait a sec. Hi, Meg!
I had something, so I'm a stay-at-home mom, and we're actually going to be talking about stay-at-home moms next week. And for me, I had and it was something very similar, but on a totally opposite spectrum. That because I used to teach, and I knew I wasn't going back to work, but when I would go out to do a social event and you're meeting people for the first time, the first 2 questions they ask you is, what's your name? And the second one, what do you do? And for the longest time, it almost probably took a year of Autumn's life, I would say, oh, I'm a teacher. And I would just own I'm a teacher and talk about that. And I would go home and think, but I'm not teaching anymore. I'm at home. And why am I feeling bad about this? Why am I feeling insecure about this? And it was a big insecurity thing. And I realized that it was more me, and I needed to get out of my own way and own that it's fine that I'm home, and it's fine that some people work, and it's fine that some people make a choice to stay home. And it's really, and Mandy and I talked about this before we went live, is having self-awareness as a woman. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really key, crucial piece, is knowing who you are and what makes your heart happy, and to do that. And I don't think we sometimes give ourselves permission enough to do things that make us happy, because guilt gets in the way, or other people's ideas get in the way, and we sometimes have to realize we're not a daughter first, we're not a sister first, we're not this first, but who am I? Like, let me own my hat, and then the other things will come into play, and your life will be balanced more. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a big thing that Mandy came on. So Mandy's going to kind of take you on a journey of you know, because this wasn't always like this, where she had this like great little office, right? She's going to take you on what happens when you realize, like, I don't like this life where things are going. I'm struggling with this balance, and then how to bring it back in. So hopefully you guys can all walk away with like putting some of these plans in place to hopefully get to where you want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hi, Beth. So I think, you know, one of the questions that Amanda asked me was how did I start, like, what was my breaking point and with work-life balance? And at first I'm like, okay, well, when I had Aliana, what struggles did I have? But I actually had to go a little bit farther back for when I really had my first, like, I like had a quarter life crisis. And anyone who, you know, follows me on Facebook, like, I'm sure you see this like glamorous life that we all see from all of our Facebook pages. But the reality was, like, it has been a hot mess. So don't think that this is like, here's the perfect plan. Hey girls, hey.
Yeah, and part of being here too is this isn't a place like we're bestowing knowledge on. Like, what we're hoping...
I've just failed a lot, so I can talk about it.
I mean, and all of us have in different areas. And what I'm hoping like this platform can be, this is a place of love, and, you know, we all can learn something from one another from different, you know, life things that we've been on. Mm-hmm. And thankfully for Mandy, like, she's such a, I think you are a role model for a lot of people, and I think it's a hard place to come from and say, this is where I struggled with, this is where I fell on my face, and this is how I picked myself up. Mm-hmm. And love you for just doing this, because you're right. I think people see the glam side and know that, you know, you can get to where you want to be through, you know, what you're going to share, which is great.
So I would say when you talk about work-life balance, you think about kids. And for me, the work-life balance started when I started my business in, you know, 2010, and Eddie at the time was still at school out in Seneca Falls. And so it was like the best relationship for a crazy working person, because I would see him once a week. And so
that is,
it's like the best relationship ever.
It's like a Disney relationship. You have your life, and it's like, let's go on our date. But I don't. But I'm not mad at you because you're leaving dishes in the dishwasher.
No. And it worked really great for us because he was studying all the time and I was working all the time. But then, like, real life creeps in and the honeymoon phase kind of fades and you're living together, and I still wanted to work my 15-hour days, and he kept, you know, kind of saying, like, are we gonna like see each other? Are we gonna do this? And he was so supportive through it, but there essentially just came a point where, you know, I'm going this way, he was going this way, and we just kept, you know, really going away from each other. And we were, you know, probably one phone call away from like really being away from each other forever. And that was when God just stepped in and just loved us through it. And
what was that moment, or like what, like who, because you guys both weren't always church people, or like really invested in God.
Yep. So Eddie was raised Catholic, and he I think he would like go to church every once in a while, but I really wasn't raised with anything. And when I was just having my hard time, my girlfriend said, just pray about it. Like, pray what you should do. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. And
especially
if you've been far removed from it.
Yeah. I'm like, should I like pray to the moon? They're like, just look up. Just look up. I'm like, I can do that. and it was,
it's so true.
It was just one of those things where I just said, you know, God, just tell me what path I need to take. Like, it was a low point, you know, and I think not a lot of people talk about those realities. And I just said, Lord, fill me up. Whoever you are, fill me up with what I need. And I just was filled up with love for Eddie. And I was like, okay, so he didn't want to be with me, I didn't want to be with him, but God told us we had to be together. And that was really our journey that we just started to take together of what do we need to do to not let us get to that point again? And starting to put tools in place to identify what kind of time is really quality time that we need to spend together, and be mindful of that. So that was where my work-life balance really started, because I realized how precious that was. And, you know, I'm probably going to reference like a million books because I read way too much and too many podcasts, but I think it might have been Gary Keller's The One Thing, where it was like you have all of these like balls in the air at one time, and it's family, and it's relationships, and it's your health, and it's work, and you know, a bunch of these things, and so many of those are rubber, and if they bounce, they come back up, but your relationships, those are glass. And those you have to prioritize. And for me, that was
that resonates.
That was just an aha. Like all of these other things, it's okay if they slip a little bit, but for relationships, you can't. And so that was really the building blocks for us to start to be really in tune with what we need from each other, and how we can focus on balancing these businesses. Like my husband's crazy, like he's amazing. He's so into it. He's so passionate in his business. I'm so passionate in mine. And how do we create those tools to connect and stay connected, even with businesses?
And I think what's really important too is this isn't a 9 to 5. And a lot of us are in 9 to 5s, but when you're trying to build something from the ground up, I think it's very easy to lose track of that's the most important thing, because in a way your work feels like your baby. So if you let your baby go, you're going to feel like it's going to fail. And I think in reality, and you know, we talked about this before the live stream, and I want us to bring it up again, was setting down and doing temperature checks with your spouse and doing check-ins with them. How many of you does this sound like? It's been a crazy day. You come home, your husband comes home, and you know, maybe you got home 5 minutes before him, but you think your world's a million times more difficult already, and you're kind of like this, like, I'm trying to get dinner going, do something!
Amiko's crying in the corner, Aliana's trying to potty train and like is peeing in the...
Yeah. Pick a kid and figure it out. You know, you don't like greet them at their door. You're just like biting their head off. And you're in it, you're trying to get a bunch of stuff done. And then by the time everybody's in bed, you're then, you know, just doing, maybe you want to like, I've had a day and you just want to like zone out on like a TV show. Or you just want to go on, you know, Facebook and do like a scroll. Although this is very important.
Yes, you should be here.
But you know, you kind of forget to have conversations with your spouse. And I think sometimes when you're going a million miles an hour, it can be really scary to sit down and say, how is your day? Where are you at? What's going on? You seemed stressed today. Do you want to talk about what happened? And that was a big game changer for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you said Eddie is that person in your relationship, right?
Yeah. And I have to, the quarter life crisis that I had, it was really humbling to kind of break the walls down between Eddie and I to be able to communicate with each other. And for him, he's kind of like my temperature check. So if I'll be upset about something, he's like, hey, you know, is there something going on? Do you want to talk? And I'm like, I'm fine. I'm not fine. And he's like, okay. And then he kind of like has his tactics where he like builds up, you know, just builds to like try to see, well, you know, what did your day look like? You know, did you have any phone calls? And like tries to like get to it. He's like, there's something more, honey. There's something more. And
that's
then,
good. That's
and then
really
he
good.
like, he kind of gets me to understand what it is that's causing that stress. Like, why did I just snap at him? Why was I not patient with Aliana? Like, what was that? And slowly, as you start to kind of have those temperature checks, you really start to realize, like, what are the common denominators?
Right.
And, like, a joke that I would have was, like, in real estate, you have, like, you know, contracts that expire. Well, you make an offer, and I would have contracts that would expire at 7 o'clock. Well, do you know how important 7 o'clock is in a family world? Like, that's when you're supposed to be eating dinner, and I would be, like, checking my email. Did we get that contract? My client would be texting me. We'd have all these things going on, and it's like, why don't I just, you know, figure out a way to have it expire at, like, 5 o'clock? So that we're not dealing with it when we're together. And it was all of these things.
Did you have that moment? Or did he kind of, or do you remember him saying, this time doesn't work, and then you kind of had to do an evaluation or a...
I don't remember. I think the biggest like dramatic change that we made was him saying, let me in. He was saying, like, let me in, I need to know what's going on. And what was important about that was when I would have, you know, a deal that I was working on with clients I was working on, I would be panicked about like an inspection release, like the furnace didn't get passed, and if the furnace doesn't pass, then we can't get our commitment and our appraisal, and then we can't close on time, and they need to be out of their house in 10 seconds. Like all of this drama, that's a really big deal to me.
Well, it's all time sensitive, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'd be freaking out, and Eddie's like, what is wrong? And I'm like, psh, you wouldn't understand. And he's like, well, how about you let me in like early on so that I can understand? And that was hard for me. Like every day we'd have to sit and he'd be like, talk to me, like tell me how your day went. What are your new, what are the transactions you're working on? What's new in your business? How, how's the office? How are the girls? All of those things, so that I let him in and really made him a partner in our business, so that it's, that he does know what's going on, so that he can help me through those challenges. And when I am freaking out, he can actually help because he does understand. So I think that letting in was just as important as navigating through the time.
I think that probably resonates with so many people, that let me in statement, because I think too often, especially if you and your spouse are both working partners, and then if you're in different fields, some of you have the luxury, I know I have some teacher friends that you and your spouse are both teachers, so at least you come from the same world. But when your spouse are coming from two different careers, you sometimes forget to let them in. You're in your own world with your own problems, and your problems are always bigger sometimes, or at least you perceive them to be, than your spouse's. And rather than helping each other, you become each other's worst enemy, arch nemesis. And then you feel that's where the house starts to crumble. And I think there's a big shift sometimes that we need to happen. Is our kids a priority? Is my job a priority? And when those things, you're kind of putting those in the air first, and you're letting your spouse drop, or pretending that he's the rubber ball like Mandy described, you're not going to be juggling anything. You're going to be juggling by yourself, and you start to feel overwhelmed. And I think what we need to sometimes do, and what has made a big difference for you, is, are you and your husband a partner in this? And if you're not, how can you fix that? And one thing Mandy and Ed did is you went to counseling, right?
Oh yeah, lots of counseling.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people here.
Oh, hi Lauren, hi Elise, love you guys.
By the way, thanks for watching. You have, and I want to say, a lot of you, thanks for following MomSimply because of this lovely lady. I mean, really, I went up to almost 400 followers because of Mandy Friend.
No,
it was
you're
kind
amazing.
of great. So Mandy's going to kind of take us, one of the things we talked about is letting your spouse in for work-life balance. And then if you feel like, you haven't let them in yet, and you're juggling all of these things, and you realize your husband's not one of those balls you're juggling, or you're not even making him a priority at all. Maybe he's not even a ball. You're that far removed.
I wonder if Eddie's even watching this. I didn't mean for this to be about you. It's just the direction it's gone.
Well, that's part of work-life balance, is making sure you and your spouse are good, right?
Yeah, because if that's not there,
you're already going to be scrambling.
Yes, you're in the negative.
So who started the conversation about, let's, go see a counselor? Because that can be really intimidating sometimes.
I think we both just knew it. It was after, lots of strong discussions. If you know Eddie and I, if you can imagine the battle. But just a lot of conversations where we were just we're just bashing our heads against a wall. We're not making any progress, and we need a third party to help us through. And, I think counseling too, there's a lot of people that have this negative connotation toward it. But all of my friends, they're I love counselors. I'm a therapist. And even counseling can come in so many forms. I have my, the moms groups, my church, Bible studies, all of those things. All it is just someone giving you that different opinion. And I really, if you can't get your spouse to go, even you need to go. And I was really lucky that Eddie was on board with it.
Yeah.
And I think too, when we went through that quarter life crisis, we went through it together, and he saw it, and he saw what we can be. Megan, you guys know. he saw, how it is very black and white. 5 love languages. That's exactly where I'm going.
That's awesome. Rose is a mom in my preschool group. She's fantastic. She's
that
great.
was the game changer. And so
you guys did that together?
Yes.
Great.
Well, I joke, I read it, and then I just what is it called? A bunny ear?
Yeah.
A bunny ear, the page's friend.
The dog ear.
Dog ear. Bunny ear. Bunny ear.
She made it go higher in there.
Yeah, I flipped it up. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so I folded the corner down of the pages, but it was the during the counseling, the big thing for us was just finding tools to love on each other, finding tools to kind of do a gut check and to take yourself out of this attacking ego confident mode, to really be
and that's
looking
challenging
inside.
to take ego out of things.
Mm-hmm. So with the 5 love languages, his is quality time and mine is acts of his is quality time and physical touch, and mine is pretty much acts of service. And I would be getting him lunch, buying him dinner, doing all of these things, and he would be I just want to sit with you. And for people who know me, that's really hard. I need to sit with you and not text people and not do all these million other things, not multitask. And it was you have this, when I was okay, I need to sit with you, I'd mentally prepare. I put it in my calendar and I'm I will sit with Eddie for 2 hours tonight. You can do it. And it was so hard. And what I joke about it was the first 5 minutes were the toughest. I would have to turn my phone over and I would just be I need to be checking. And then slowly I would hold his hand. And we would watch a movie, and I would be and my heart would just soften. And that was
Still live, it just paused.
Oh, sorry. And then the next day, after I did that, he would do the dishes. And then he would help me with things. And we started to really identify how we were actually able to love each other. So through counseling, through a lot of reading, through a lot of podcasts, through just a lot of communication with each other, we were really able to start growing on it.
Well, I think that's huge, is having a book study even together, finding out how does your partner need to feel love. That's a really...
Yes.
And I think too often we love on our partner the way we want to be loved on.
Yes.
So you're
that's it. That's what they say.
You're doing it always backwards, and the other person's always feeling unfulfilled and frustrated because they're not being loved on the way they need to be loved on. So we have, letting first your partner in, seeking counseling if you guys are on different pages, sitting down and saying, you know what, we need to reevaluate, we need to readjust what's going on, and we need to reconnect again. And so third thing with work-life balance, when you decided to start doing the daycare and with Aliana, and when you decided to do this, how did that come into play? Because I'm sure a lot of people are curious with, you work next to your husband, that sounds crazy, and what do you mean you're close to your daughter? How does that make sense for you, though, that your worlds have kind of combined into one?
Mm-hmm. So what we found was, as we were getting to be so busy, we really delegated a lot. So we've really focused on what does busy look like, and it's not busy, it's productive times. How can we really stay as connected as we possibly can? And it started where Eddie bought this building, and he had his practice downstairs, and then there was the daycare next door. And we went through, toured it, awesome, and I was oh my gosh, how perfect is this? Eddie can help me bring Aliana to daycare. And while I guess I'll get into it, but basically while I was there, God kept saying, it has to stay daycare, it has to stay daycare. And I'm I don't get this, and it kept getting on my heart, and Eddie's just talk to them, and they said, it's always going to stay a daycare, and I was okay, fine, and then 2 weeks later it shuts down. And I felt there was a reason God put that on my heart, and I was okay, well, we were supposed to buy a house, I guess we're going to buy a daycare now. And it was just all these things that didn't make sense, all of a sudden slowly started to make sense. And for us, the benefit of it is, I nurse my son, so if I need to run next door and drop off milk or nurse him or anything like that, I can do that. Eddie goes and takes Aliana when he's on lunch, he'll go for a 15-minute walk with her.
Yeah.
When Eddie and I feel we don't have any time together, we go to Qdoba for a romantic lunch date, which, guys, have you done lunch dates? Has anyone ever done lunch dates?
We did when Lee was doing tax season because I never saw him, and I really liked it though.
It's like so efficient, and you're like still positive because you're not exhausted from your day. So you're
in the middle of your day, so it's like you have so much fun energy kind of explaining what's going on.
Yeah, and so you check in, and then by the time you get home, you've already like updated half of your day, so you can just like, I don't know, be more together and not have to like catch up on everything. But yeah, so we started doing lunch dates, and really it's just, in Keller Williams, we talk about like not a life by default, but a life by design. And it's really hard to design it, but we've really said, okay, these are the days that we're going to focus on being in the office. These are the days that I'm going to spend with, Aliana and Amiko. And this is the time Eddie and I are going to spend together. And then also this is the time that I'm going to, haven't done much working out, but, be by myself and just kind of like spend some, alone time. And that's really where it's just a lot of gut checks at that point, prayers and, Bible study and what am I doing for myself.
Have you found, Mandy, with your Monday through Friday, we'll kind of exclude the weekend, but like the work week that a lot of us are in, do you have a habit or routine that you're consistent with?
Yes. So phase like the biggest part and the biggest challenge I think that a lot of us have problems with is identifying what brings us contentment. Is contentment staying at home? Is contentment working full time? Is it working part time? Is it staying at home and then having something else? I think that's the challenge. And then the second piece is like, how do you implement that? So what I found was I love to work, and if I stay home with my family over the weekend, by the time Monday rolls around, I am like, let's go. I'm like,
you're excited for Monday. There's no case of the Mondays. You're like, I'm done, ready to go.
Yeah, and we're ready to rock and roll. And that's so exciting for me that I get excited for the weekend, and I get excited to go to work Monday morning too. Right. So really finding what you're passionate about. So within, when I was actually had Aliana at first, what I tried to do was jam pack like 3 full days of work. So I would work 8 to 8 Monday, 8 to 8 Tuesday, be with her Wednesday, 8 to 8 Thursday, and then Friday was like this extra day. But what I found was because I was working so hard Monday, Tuesday, my Wednesday was like, I couldn't even function. Yay, Monday.
So exhausted.
I was so exhausted. And so then I like had to again do this like, where am I lacking? Because like Aliana, could we go to the museum and play? No, I need to sleep. Like I can't function. I can't like get the paintbrush out. I can't like go for walks with her. I was beat. So now what my schedule is I work, we try to do like a 9 to 5, 9 to 6 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then I still have my Wednesdays, but the goal is that I'm not exhausted on Wednesdays.
You're not killing yourself.
I'm not killing myself. And, my husband and I work a lot at night. And that's how we connect. But one night I'll work with him on his business, and the next night he'll work with me on mine. So we're connected. And when you're entrepreneurs, you're working all the time, but really saying, hey, let's sit, and he loves watching Rocky. Please.
Like the movie?
Like the movie.
On replay?
No, like all of them. There's like 20 of them. I don't even know.
That's so funny. Lee's was The Big Short, but they took it off Netflix, so he's released it.
Did you really just delete it so that you didn't have to watch it anymore?
I mean, all of the time. And I'm like, this isn't a series, it's one movie. He's like, I know, but I love it. Loved The Big Short.
But, really finding, like, what connects you, and actually what connects us a lot. Like, so I used to watch, like, ABC, and, like, all those, like, they're, like, bad shows. Like, ABC. Like,
in which one?
Like, okay, don't hate me if I'm going to say this.
Are you going to say This Is Us?
No, This Is Us was fine. I actually stopped watching
that yet, but I know people love it.
Remember when it was, like, the lineup was, like, Betrayal, Bachelorette, Liars, I don't know what they're called, but it was like there was so many shows that were about like this life that like
crap,
like that wasn't good for my brain. That Eddie and I love watching Shark Tank.
It's so good.
So
do we.
And it's so like non-emotional. You get excited. You get to do like you talk business. Like we found things that it's an hour that we get connected. For me, it's also we like to get in bed before and like read. Like you find these times where you're able to connect. So those kind of things in our schedule has been so important, and sticking to it, because it's so easy to have all of these other things come up. And my husband is an appointment. Like love him. I mean that sounds bad, but like my husband's an appointment. In the same way my kids are an appointment. Like they, in nothing can break that time that, I just need to spend with them. And the quality time that I get with them for those couple hours as opposed to being with them all day is like, that's so valuable to me that I can just snuggle them and eat them up and be so present with them for those few hours. That really, I think, brings out the best in our relationship too.
And I think what hit home for me as you're speaking on all of those things, the common denominator among everything you discussed, and I'm sure everyone listening in heard it too, is that was Eddie. When you're watching something, it's a show you want to watch together. Mm-hmm. When you're reading, you're finding something. You're in bed together regardless if you're reading it or not together. When you're doing work, he's either helping you and plug into what you're doing and building your growth, but in turn, you're also pouring into him and feeding that too. Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, like, we are so not perfect at this at all, but what we notice is when we start to disconnect, we notice, oh, well, we have been separate every single night. Oh, I do put Amiko down and then then I go to bed and he's still up. He's having late nights. Like, no, we need to prioritize those things. So those are some just tools that we've used when we do feel like we're separating to kind of pull us back together.
Oh, I think that's huge. I mean, I can look at the cracks. What was the book you were talking about before?
Guys. Okay.
Guys, you need to hear this. It'll blow my mind.
So 5 love languages first and foremost, but then second is Brene Brown, Gifts of Imperfection. Wait, you stopped watching This Is Us? No, I didn't stop watching This Is Us. I've never seen it. I really don't watch TV. I watch Shark Tank. That's about it.
And I need to. I've never seen an episode. I heard it's amazing. I don't know. I think separately too, would anyone be interested? And I feel like Mandy's listened to so many podcasts and stuff. We could almost do you want to feel good about yourself, ladies? Like, here are some. And you could almost do like a book talk or book
Oh my gosh,
study.
I love it.
Yeah, I feel like you would be so great at that.
So, Brene Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection, was a huge aha for me because it, especially in my world, I was very, like, I don't know if it was definitely ego, but like when you want to be successful and you're so driven, you like have to create this like perfect image of yourself. Mm-hmm. And the reality is,
a lot of us do that. That's what social media is.
Yes.
Is we're these perfect people with everything together.
Yes. And so, and the Bills when you're on the hill. I have to watch the Bills. Or really just my dad get upset that they're losing. But The Gifts of Imperfection to me talks about a lot about how comparison is like a thief and fear is a thief and all of these things that take away your joy. Mm-hmm. And that the second you embrace who you are, and it was like cracks are what let the light in is like my favorite thing, that it's like those are the cracks that you have in your life that you've all experienced, that everyone's experienced, that people don't want to talk about. But the second you find these like really great relationships that we've been able to form, it's like that's when you can really be authentic with people, talk with people, and they can help you. Yes. And you can really be clear on what you need. And I think this whole thing, the book club it's Bible study, and I joke that I call it book club, but like it's the book.
It's the number one best-selling book ever, the Bible. So
it's book club, but really it's Bible study. But this time, our Bible study leader, she has us reading "Keep Your Love On" by Danny Silk. Is it called "Keep Your Love On"? And one of the things it talks about is how in The Gifts of Imperfection, it's the same thing, that you need to like identify what your needs are. And in this book, Keep Your Love On, it talks about how like even God, the guy who created us and who knows everything about us, needs us to still ask. He needs us to ask him. And that to me was just such this like crazy concept that like, how can we expect us to not even be able to like ask our husbands, ask our friends, ask our family for what we need? And we have to, we say, oh, they should know, but we still need to ask God.
Not even they should know, but I can do it on my own.
Yes.
I don't need help. I got it together. Mm-hmm. And then we're wondering why we're failing and we're drowning and we're mad at everybody and we're biting everybody's head off, and it's because we're not delegating.
Yeah.
Delegating emotionally to God, plugging in there, not delegating physically and mentally toward your husband so that they can help take your load off, and not delegating to emotionally to your friends, about being authentic, being real. I think a lot of us struggle to show our cracks to people, right? Mm-hmm. To show where where we need help.
Love you, Beth.
And
Love you, Heather.
That's a challenge to do. And a big thing to take away from this is if you're struggling with balance, who do you have in your life that's a key person that loves you unconditionally, that you can kind of dump some of this on? And if you're in a season of your life where you're feeling overwhelmed, ask for help from somebody, from a friend. Hopefully you have somebody at church you can ask. Hopefully you have family that you can pour into, because being a parent, being a mom, and doing this, you need help. You need a community of people to really help balance things.
Yes, yes.
It's impossible, and it's crazy to expect to have it on yourself. Mm-hmm. So just to kind of circle back to some of the key things we talked about,
You're so good at that. Just really keep us on task.
It's the teacher in me.
It does take a village, yep.
We're meant to lean on each other. It's so true. And thank you, Heather, for saying that. Is Heather one of your tribe? Thanks for joining, Heather. Thanks for being part of the tribe. I don't know why I do this so much. I don't know why.
I haven't worn my hair down in like 20 years, so
there's nothing to pop up.
Mom bun.
Oh yeah, next week when we do being at home, I think how I'm gonna dress, and I'll ask my co-anchor mom who stays at home just to dress like, throw your hair up. Ooh, I don't want to knock that off, and just be that way. I guess this is professional as we get though.
Yeah.
But
so you were recapping, letting your husband in, let them in, let them be a part of your day in and day out. Whatever your work life looks like, share that with them, so that if you're in a moment of stress, if you're in a week of stress, maybe it's a month of stress with work, they can hopefully come from a place that they can help share, and they can help unpack things for you, and they can help a little bit more at home. If you and your husband are in a season of, I've lost touch with this person, he's become my roommate, we've turned into just kind of bickering at each other or just coexisting with each other, then maybe have that sit down conversation and say, maybe we need to go seek counseling. We need somebody else to kind of bring us back to where we need to go in. A great book a lot of people shared on here is 5 Love Languages. Dive into that together. At least learn, how does my husband need to feel loved, and let me help show him how I need to feel loved, because that's going to help you balance everything better. And you spoke on designing the life that you want to, having that self-awareness. So look at yourself and think, what do I want? What is my end goal? Do I like working? Great. And if I do, own yourself and know that I'm going to relieve myself of having guilt from working. I'm my best version of myself. And if you want to be home more, sit down with your husband and design a plan that maybe you can be working part-time so that you can be home more, so that you're not just complaining about it all the time, but you're figuring out and making it happen. Because Mandy's shown, and a lot of people have, you can design what you want. You can love the life that you want to learn. You give yourself permission to create that life that you really want. And then lastly, one of the things we talked about is wherever you are, once you've designed that version, be in that moment. When you're sitting with your husband and hanging out with them, put your phone down, put work away, and be present. Yes.
Be present with your kid when you're there, and don't be thinking about work. You really need to kind of compartmentalize your mind so that your heart can be open to whatever you're experiencing. And those are the key things to kind of help balance. And it's never going to be perfect. And I think you've shared, you're constantly evaluating this, right?
Well, because it changes too. I mean, what was work-life balance for Eddie and I with one child?
It's so different.
It's totally different from 2 children. And you just have to be ultra aware of that thermostat. You had said execution. Oh gosh, there was something I wanted to say, but I got distracted by all the awesome things you were saying.
All I did was regurgitate all the things you said.
No, you didn't. But you made it sound really good. Like, I don't think mine came out that great. But I think being present. Okay.
Yeah.
In the backstory, the behind the scenes of being present is that you have truly found what brings you contentment. So if you start by soul searching and figuring out what brings you contentment, when I'm at work and I miss my babies, I can instantly say, I know that I have in my schedule that I will be seeing them this time and I've got that time with them. So that can go away from my mind because I'm confident that I have my time with them. Then when I'm with my babies and I'm like, oh my gosh, did I do that? Did I do that? I know that I plan it so that after time with the babies, I have, an hour to make sure that everything's good with work. So the behind the scenes of presence is really figuring out and identifying how you're going to find contentment in your life.
I think that's huge because that's part of having the plan to the happiness of being present. And I think that circles back to making appointments. And it sounds crazy, but make appointments for those interactions. If you need girl time to kind of help you feel balanced, to have a moment, make it happen. Mandy's been instrumental in our mom circle to organize things for us to do. And I look forward to it so much, and it makes my heart happy. Make that happen. If you and your husband have, I don't remember the last time Lee and I went on a date. We need to do that because that's to sit down and not be doing kids or just being in your living room, but being out and feeling like you're dating that person again. That's so great. And I think so many of us can take something away that we can hopefully start applying to our lives. And know that none of us have it figured out.
No.
Far from. And we're all kind of a mess, really. But I think in being a mess and owning that, know that, it's an imperfect, beautiful life. And we're here to hopefully, at MomSimply, be a place where you feel like it's okay to not have it all together because none of us do. And we're just here to hopefully help share something that we've learned together. So thank you so much for being my second guest.
You're so welcome.
I appreciate it. And thank you everybody so much for watching. And make sure if you're not already, share MomSimply and like and follow the page. Ooh, let's see what Elise wrote real quick.
Ever do a live about how you decided to start something on your own, talking about goals and how you stayed on track? Do you know that's what my life goals I want to be? I want to my one of my big goals is to start coaching and teaching and kind of navigating through especially women in business because I just absolutely love that. So Elise, you can be my what do you call it?
Be your first
a pilot.
Your pilot client.
My pilot client.
That's fantastic.
In all my free time.
Yeah.
I love you, Elise.
So that's great. Hopefully this will maybe inspire, some of you to reach out to Mandy.
I'm here.
Yeah, she's here.
I joke that you can find me. Our signs should be everywhere, so you should find me.
You know how many times where I've shared too, does anyone know Mandy? And they're like, who? And then I'll show them a picture. Oh yeah, I saw her sign up. Yeah. I thought she looked familiar. Yeah.
Except I don't look like that at all because my picture was when I was 22 and it was a really what is it, a muggy day. So my hair had all this volume and people were like, is that you? I'm like, I don't know.
You're beautiful. Thank you so much, guys. And have a great week.
Mwah.